Good morning, afternoon, or evening, depending on where you are in the world. I am Dr. Joanne Yanez, and with me today is Dr. Sharon Stills. We are going to be starting this webinar in about 3 minutes, so hold tight and thanks for coming. Good morning, afternoon, or evening, depending on where you are. I am Dr. Joanne Yanez. I'm the Executive Director for the Association of Accredited Naturopathic Medical Colleges, and I'm welcoming you all to our webinar today. I am super excited to be speaking with and having join us Dr. Sharon Stills. Dr. Stills and I are longtime colleagues, and I wore red in her honor because it's one of her favorite colors. But before we begin today, I just want to go through some housekeeping. So this webinar is recorded and it will be available for you all on our website and our YouTube channel at some point, maybe in a day or so. So if you have any questions or you want to watch a piece of it again, you're more than welcome to. We will be taking Q&A, question and answer, after Dr. Stills is finished speaking. If you can use the little Q&A box in your Zoom platform for the questions so that we can keep tabs of those, that would be wonderful. And so with that, I'm going to introduce our speaker for the day. Dr. Stills is a naturopathic doctor, women's health specialist, entrepreneur, lecturer, author, and certified meditation instructor who provides therapeutic and diagnostic services to patients in need of a different approach. She believes that the mind and body must be treated for one to achieve genuine health. Dr. Stills is a graduate of the Southwest College of Naturopathic Medicine. She's passionate about her profession and is a leader in advancing naturopathic legislation. Dr. Stills founded and ran one of the largest, most successful clinics in the country for over a decade. She's now semi-retired, seeing patients in Southern Arizona, teaching, lecturing, and writing, and with a series of health issues of her own. Dr. Stills practices what she preaches. She likes to cook and eat healthily and prioritizes a good night's sleep, which is what we are going to be talking about today. I love Dr. Stills' phrase, sleep is a superpower. And so today she is here to share with you how to cultivate your own sleep as your superpower. So with that, I'm going to make my face go away. Dr. Stills, take it away and have a great webinar.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for that lovely introduction. And hello, everyone. It is a pleasure to be here with you. I am super excited to be sharing about sleep today and just educating you about naturopathic medicine, all the wonderful things. So I love the title of my talk, Sleep, Don't Leave Home Without It, because I think something we often do is skimp on our sleep. And I bet many of you watching have left home without a good night's sleep. And sleep is so important. A lack of sleep has been correlated to an increase in traffic accidents. It's been correlated to an increase in all sorts of detrimental effects in our body. Even the Chernobyl accident, they think, something, the mistake that was made had to do with the lack of sleep that people had. So please take this title to heart, Sleep, Don't Leave Home Without It, because it is super, super necessary. Even the Guinness Book of World Records has taken away like the event of like who can go without the most sleep for the longest, because it is so detrimental to our health. And so just real quickly, my story, how I found naturopathic medicine, or how naturopathic medicine found me. I was a single mom. I had been very sick my whole life. Many of us come to this because we were sick ourselves, and then we found holistic healing, naturopathic medicine able to take care of us, and then we wanted to share that. And that was my story. I had been sick. I didn't want my young son to be sick. I went and saw a naturopathic doctor over in Canada. He helped my son, who had been suffering with ear infections and eczema. And I remember walking out of his office and standing in the parking lot and saying, I'm going to do what he does. And I had no clue what it entailed. I just kept saying the power of our words and what we commit to are very powerful. I just kept saying, I'm going to be a naturopathic doctor. I'm going to be a naturopathic doctor. And I ended up being a divorced single mom at the age of like 23 with two small kids, had no idea that I had to go get an undergraduate degree. So it took me 10 years to finally go through the whole process with two kids as a single mom and get my degree. And so I tell you that because in case you're sitting there going, well, I really want to be a naturopathic doctor, but I don't know how I'm going to do it. I have all these obstacles I need to overcome. I say this to you that you can overcome them. There is always a way when there's a will. And so just keep declaring it and take steps to get to your goal, because becoming a naturopathic physician was one of the best things I've ever done in my life. And so as Dr. Yanez says, I am a graduate of SCNM here in Tempe in Arizona, and I highly recommend the school. I recommend it so much that my eldest son wanted to become a doctor, and I said, well, you should go to SCNM, and he did, and he just graduated in June. So we have a second generation naturopath. I'm really excited about that. And so that's how strongly I feel about SCNM. I would only want the best for my son, and that's where I sent him. So let's just move on. We're going to talk about the agenda. We don't have a ton of time because I could give a 3-day seminar on sleep and everything about it that I find so fascinating. So we're just going to touch on some interesting points, give you a little variety of all the different things, and of course at the end give you some great tips so you can make sleep your superpower too. And hopefully by the end you will realize why it's so important to do that. We'll talk about lack of sleep, common diagnosis known as insomnia, common causes of sleep disturbances, the importance of healthy sleep habits, natural ways to sleep better. And we'll talk about a little bit how this looks in clinical practice with patients. And I'll probably sprinkle that all through the webinar. And so I always like to start when I'm talking about something, I always like to go to the medical dictionary and see, what actually is it? And so sleep, as you can read here, is the natural, easily reversible periodic state of many living things that is marked by the absence of wakefulness and by the loss of consciousness of one's surroundings. It's accompanied by a typical body posture, such as lying down with the eyes closed, although I'm sure all of you have seen people sleep in other postures. I happened to see my 83-year-old mother fall asleep at the dinner table the other night sitting up, and so it doesn't always have to be lying down, but that is what we recommend. It includes the occurrence of dreaming, changes in brain activity, and physiological functioning, and it's made up of different cycles. So there's non-REM sleep, there's REM sleep, so it's actually this whole journey that you go through in your body, and it's usually considered essential. I'm going to say it is considered essential. I'm going to get rid of the usually, to the restoration and recovery of vital bodily and mental functions. And so when we're thinking about sleep, we start to think about like the nervous system, and there's all these things happening in our body. We have so many different systems, and during the day, we have nerve cells that are being acted upon with neurotransmitters such as serotonin or orexin or norepinephrine. And these are keeping us stimulating. These are keeping us awake. And then there's other neurons at the base of the brain that begin signaling when we should fall asleep. And so there's research that suggests that there's a chemical such as adenosine, which it's building up in our blood. So all these things are happening automatically without us even having to do anything. This is just the natural process. And so this is building up in our blood while we're awake, and it causes drowsiness. And this chemical will gradually break down while we sleep. And so that may be one you may not have heard of, but melatonin, I think most of us have heard of. It's a pretty popular one. And so what I want to do is focus a little bit on melatonin now. And I just want to geek out with you all a little, just do a little biochemistry and just kind of give you some science behind what's going on here. So I've got a great little visual on the screen for you, and I'm just going to talk about it a little. So our bodies release chemicals in a 24-hour cycle, and this nudges us to do certain activities at certain times. And each of these cycles is called a circadian rhythm. And Latin, circa means around, and dian means day. So circadian means around the day. And one of the most important chemicals that are involved in this process is melatonin. And this is a hormone that makes us feel sleepy. And the amount of melatonin in our body, it starts increasing in the evenings, it peaks in the middle of the night, and it lets us know it's time to sleep. And then it starts decreasing in the morning, allowing us to wake up and feel refreshed. And so to maintain our 24-hour sleep cycle, our bodies will translate information about the time of day into melatonin production. And so you can see this starts, if you look at the little picture in the eyeball and you see the sun and inhibition. And so this is where it starts. It starts in the eye's retina. And the retina is exposed to light. And then there's a signal that's released from the retina to an area of the brain, which is called the suprachiasmatic nucleus. And this plays a role in whether we feel awake or we feel sleepy. And so this area, the suprachiasmatic nucleus, sends signals to the other parts of the brain that will control our hormones and also our body temperature. And so this signal will travel from the brain down the spinal cord back up to the pineal gland, which is a small, it's pine cone shaped organ in the brain, and that's where melatonin production takes place. And so during the day, these signals, they prevent the pineal gland from producing melatonin. But when it's dark outside, these signals are not activated, and the pineal gland is able to produce melatonin. So in other words, exposure to light, you see the little sun there, prevents melatonin release. So that's why we stay awake in the day. And lack of exposure to light causes melatonin release, which tells us to go to sleep. And this is why it's so important. We'll talk about when you're sleeping that you need to have your room blacked out, and so you can sleep and get your melatonin production. And so this is just a little bit of how our bodies know when to produce melatonin. But so where does the melatonin actually come from? So we can take it a step deeper. And so melatonin is actually synthesized from an amino acid that's called tryptophan. And this is absorbed from the bloodstream into the pineal gland. So an amino acid is just an organic acid that's used to make proteins. So this synthesis of melatonin from tryptophan, it occurs through a multi-step process. Everything is very complicated in the body, but very beautiful and orchestrated so well. The innate intelligence is just miraculous and amazing, and I just love studying it. So first we have tryptophan is converted into another amino acid, which is known as 5-hydroxytryptophan. And many of you may have heard of that as a supplement. It's called 5-HTP. You may see it on the health food store shelf. And so 5-HTP is commonly used. It can be used for people who are suffering from depression or people who have trouble sleeping at night. It's a good one for seasonal affective disorder when you live somewhere like Seattle and you don't get to see the sun a lot. And so it's converted to this 5-HTP through the action of an enzyme called tryptophan hydroxylase. And then it gets converted to a brain chemical known as serotonin, which is a neurotransmitter that many of you have heard of probably as well, which is like our happy, feel good neurotransmitter. So it's done by an enzyme. It's converted from 5-HTP to serotonin by this enzyme called aromatic amino acid decarboxylase. And so an enzyme is a biological catalyst that speeds up the rate of a chemical reaction. So it's really important as we're going through all these biochemical processes, we have to have the right cofactors, we have to have the right vitamins for everything to work, otherwise things get stuck. So serotonin's conversion to melatonin then further involves two more enzymes. One known as serotonin N-acetyltransferase, or it's just known as SNAT, and that converts serotonin to N-acetylserotonin with the addition of a acetyl group. And hydroxyindole methyltransferase, which we can call HIOMT, transfers the methyl group to the N-acetylserotonin. So these activities of the enzymes rise after the onset of darkness. So the amount of melatonin produced, it depends on the activity of the SNAT enzyme, which is going to peak when it's dark outside. So exposure to light induces signals that, as I talked about earlier, will travel from the retina to the suprachiasmatic nucleus and then to the pineal gland, resulting in the degradation of SNAT. However, at night, SNAT is phosphorylated. So what is phosphorylation? It's simply the addition of a phosphate group to a protein or another organic molecule. And so this is going to prevent SNAT from being degraded, and thus it's going to increase melatonin production. So when it's morning, SNAT is degraded again, the amount of melatonin decreases, and you feel awake and ready to start the day. And so it's this very beautiful biochemical reaction. So I hope you like geeking out with me, because if you go to naturopathic school, you get to geek out on all sorts of biochemical pathways. But what's really beautiful about it is you get to like really see how the body works and how you can actually make changes and intervene to help someone feel better. So there is 5 stages of sleep. Like I said before, it's this whole journey. And so I don't really have time to go into all the different stages and what they mean, but I just wanted to give you an idea here. Stage 1 is very light sleep. Stage 2, your brain waves are starting to slow. And then you get into deep sleep where delta waves are appearing, and then you have delta waves exclusively. It's really hard to wake someone up here. And then you get into REM sleep, which is dreaming, in a totally physiological different experience than the other stages. And the take-home point that I'd like to bring up here, what's really important, is that these stages all need to occur, and they're cycling in like 90-minute time periods through the day. So if you are not getting a full 8 hours sleep and you are waking up constantly, or you're skimping on your sleep, you're only getting 4 or 5 hours, you are not getting to cycle through these stages of sleep. And this becomes a very big detriment on your health. You're not going to reach REM, you're not going to get into the deep sleep, and you're not going to get that rejuvenation that you need. So I love this, Carl Jung. I was a psychology undergrad major, and I love Jung and Jungian theory. And I love this saying, who looks outside dreams and who looks inside awakens. And I put this here because, well, it's a cool quote for you all to contemplate. But it also, like, when you look inside and when you can sleep and go inside, that is actually when you awaken. And to remind you that, you know, we just geeked out on biochemistry, but just as important is the psycho-spiritual and the psycho-emotional aspects. The mind and the body are really one complex. They are married. And so when treating patients, I'm often, yes, looking at the biochemistry and making sure their SNAT is good and looking at their circadian rhythms and manipulating the biochemical pathways, but then I'm also looking at what's going on. Why are you not sleeping? Is there trauma that's keeping you from sleeping? Are you stressed out? And so, like, I do a technique from Germany called color puncture, which is the utilization of different colored quartz crystals applied to different acupuncture points and meridians. And so in addition to the body communicating through all those nerve impulses, the body also communicates via light. It communicates via via biophotons. So Fritz Popp was a researcher over in Europe who did a lot of work on this, and this is what we base our work on in color puncture. And he saw that the cells, even beneath the neural connections, are communicating through these biophotons, which are light emissions from the cell walls to other cell walls, telling the cells how to behave. And so by putting light into the body, we can change the circadian rhythm. We can change the way the brain is functioning. And so it's just another way of looking at how to help a patient. So why is sleep so important? I was thinking if I put why is sleep not important, it would have been easier. I could have just left the slide blank because sleep is so important. And what I find in practice, I think just as a society, often we think healing has to be very complicated and very in depth and very complex and so many pieces. And that is definitely true in some parts. But as a naturopathic doctor, I find getting the foundations and the basics are so important. And sleep is one of those. And so why is sleep so important? It affects like every area in our bodies. So you need it for proper functioning of the nervous system. You need it for proper protein production and for degradation. You need it to have time to repair from stress and chemicals that we are all experiencing and exposed to. You need it for lymphatic drainage. So the lymph is a very important system in our body, and it's often forgotten about in mainstream medicine. There is no lymph doctor. Like if you have a problem with your heart, you go to the cardiologist. If you have a problem with your lungs, you go to the pulmonologist. But if you have a problem with your lymph, there is no lymphologist, and no one even probably thinks, oh, I'm having a problem with my lymph. But lymph is so crucially important. So we have our cells, but our cells are sitting in an extracellular matrix. We can call it the mesenchyme, we can call it the fascia, we can call it the internal milieu. And that area is crucial for health. And the lymph is flowing through there and needs to be cleaning out the garbage, and it needs to be bringing in the good stuff. And so if our lymph is congested, if the milieu is congested, it doesn't matter what vitamin you take or what herb you take or what you do, it's not going to be able to get in and affect the cell. And so not too long ago, they discovered the lymphatics, which is actually the lymph of the brain. And so what's interesting about this, and why I have it here, is the lymphatics only work when you are sleeping. So if you are not getting enough sleep, you're not detoxing your brain. So there, just that alone is enough to like want to get sleep, because who wants to have a toxic brain? So sleep is also important for hormone balancing. It's important for mental health. You know, they do a lot of studies on sleep and why it's so important. It's become a really big field. And I think that's great. I'm all for studies and so forth. But to me, I also think, you know, just do your own study. Like, you are your best laboratory. And so how do you feel if you don't get a good night's sleep? You know, have you ever pulled an all-nighter? I remember when I was young, when I was going to massage school before I went to undergrad, I used to think it was cool. I was in my 20s and I used to think it was cool. I would get by on 4 hours a night, and I kind of like wore it as a badge of honor. Oh yeah, only need 4 hours a night, still getting all A's in school, still taking care of my kids. You know, how cool am I? And I realized that is just silly. Now I'm like totally the opposite. I'm like, I got to have at least 8 hours of sleep or don't even talk to me. And so we should really reverse how we think about that. Sleep is so, so important. And so badges of honors for all you super sleepers out there. So insomnia. What happens, you know, that's what's happened if you are not sleeping. And approximately 33% of the world's population suffers with this as an actual diagnosis. I find it interesting because a lot of patients that come to see me are suffering from insomnia or not sleeping, but that's not like the reason that brings them in the door. They don't come in, you know, it might be like when a patient comes in, I have them write their chief complaints, what they would like to help working on. And so a lot of times they'll be like, well, you know, I'm fatigued, or I have headaches, or I need to lose weight, or whatever. And maybe at the bottom it's like, I don't sleep. Or even a lot of times they don't even say that. And it's not until I'm doing my in-depth case intake with them. Because remember, when you go see a naturopathic doctor, they spend at least an hour talking to you, listening to you, hearing your story. That's such an important part of getting a connection and understanding the case and being able to help someone. And so often it's there where I'm like, wait, you're not sleeping, or you thought it was okay that you're only sleeping 5.5 hours a night, or you think it's okay that you get up every 2 hours. And so I have to really educate the patient that, like, wow, this is a foundational issue. And this is contributing to the other complaints that you have. And so you can see here, as I've written, and I ran out of room on the slide, I could have kept going on, but insomnia contributes to heart disease, diabetes, depression, ADHD, hormone imbalances, Alzheimer's, weight gain, cancer. There's so many things that lack of sleep contributes to. And so I do a lot of work with cancer patients, and I do see a correlation with shift work. And so I have spent a lot of time working with nurses and with police officers who work the swing shift, and it's very detrimental to be on a swing shift. And so I often say, you know, the best thing you can do there is to actually get off the swing shift. You know, sometimes we have to really go to the root, get on the day, you know, look for a different job, which is easier said than done. If someone really can't get off the swing shift, it's really important then they just like connect to that schedule, and when they come home in the morning to sleep, they make sure their room is dark, and when they get up, they take their morning supplements, whatever it may be, you know, if you're taking your B vitamins or adrenal support or anything. And so, but if you don't have to be on swing shift, you should not be on a swing shift. And so what are common causes of sleep disturbances? And so this is such an important slide here because, again, in the mainstream medical world, you go in, you say you're not sleeping, and the doctor probably doesn't even ask you why or describe your sleep. You know, on my intake form, it's like, what time do you go to sleep? How long do you stay asleep? Do you wake up in the middle of the night? How do you feel when you, I mean, I have so many questions because it's not just, do you sleep? I need to know all the details of it because the details give me clues as to what's going on. And so getting to the root cause, it's one of the primary philosophies of naturopathic medicine, and what makes us stand out and be so successful. And so, yes, someone can come in and say to me, I'm not sleeping well, and I have a big choice in my toolbox. I could give them lavender, I can give them 5-HTP, I can give them melatonin, I can give them valerian root or passiflower, all these things, but I'm not really getting to the root cause. Yes, I'm not going to cause side effects most likely with my herbs or my vitamins or my nutrients, and maybe it'll help them sleep, but it didn't really get to the root cause of why they're not sleeping. And so that root cause is still going to exist and still create imbalance in the body. And so these are some common root causes. So you could have adrenal imbalances, and the adrenals are these tiny little glands that sit on the top of our kidneys. They secrete our stress hormones, cortisol, epi and norepinephrine. They secrete aldosterone, which is a mineral corticoid. It has to do with our sodium, potassium, and our water balance in our bodies. And so in this day and age, most people have some kind of adrenal stress because the lifestyle we live grants itself to being stressed out. And I am, as Dr. Yanez mentioned, I am a certified MBSR, a mindfulness-based stress reduction teacher, and I'm really big on meditation. And so it's not about getting rid of stress is what I always teach, because if you're alive, you're going to be stressed. Maybe when you die, the stress will go away, but being alive is synonymous with having some stress. It's just about how much stress you have and how you respond to stress rather than react to it. And so with adrenal imbalances, if you have low adrenal function, that you're not producing enough cortisol, and I know all we hear about in the media is too much cortisol, and that causes belly fat, and that is true, but often people are so stressed out, they've been producing cortisol, and then their body just says, sorry, I'm done, and then they become low cortisol. And people who are dealing with that, you may see them waking up in the middle of the night because their blood sugar is dropping because they don't have enough cortisol to raise the blood sugar. And so if someone wakes up, or maybe it's you listening, you know, if you wake up in the middle of the night and you're hungry and you can't sleep through the night, that's a good sign your adrenals need some love and they need some support. And on the flip side, if your adrenal glands are overstimulated or your circadian rhythm is off, we call it the HPA, the hypothalamic pituitary axis, then you might be secreting too much cortisol at night, and that cortisol is keeping you awake and you just can't fall asleep. So I will run 4-point salivary cortisol testing on patients so I can see where their cortisol is at different times of the day, so then I can go in and specifically address their adrenal glands. And so often just by doing that, I don't have to give anything at night like valerian root or any of the things I mentioned. I can just fix their adrenal glands, and then their body goes, ah, this is great, and then they start sleeping. Sex hormone imbalances. So this is a big one. I do specialize in women's health. I treat a lot of perimenopausal, menopausal women, women who have hormonal imbalances. And I can tell you that in the perimenopausal, menopausal group, as the hormones are fluctuating and starting to decline, progesterone can often be a game changer. And when I talk about hormones, I'm talking about bioidentical hormones. I am not talking about progestins. I'm not talking about any pharmaceuticals like Premarin. So when you read things about hormones in the media, typically they are talking about these pharmaceutical meds, and I am talking about bioidentical compounded at a special pharmacy, meaning biologically identical to what you produce. And so lack of progesterone is a big one. If you are perimenopausal, menopausal, and you're having hot flashes and that's keeping you up all night, you might need some estrogen. So looking at hormones is a really, really important thing and can help women to get sleeping. Circadian rhythm disturbances. So this is a huge one. We are so out of tune. And I'm not saying technology is a bad thing, because it's not, otherwise I wouldn't be here with all of you. So there's lots of good stuff with technology, but we have taken it so far where, like, we used to rise with sunset and go to bed with sundown, and now we could just flick on the lights and we can be up till all hours of the night, and we can just really throw our system off. We're not connected. You could spend like weeks not going outside, not being in nature. So it's really important that you in the morning expose yourself, get some morning sunlight so your body knows, your retina knows, hey, it's morning, time to start the day. And then at night, that you really are blacking out, that you are getting rid of the blue light, which I'm sure many of you have heard of. So it's coming from your screens and your cell phones. And optimally, like, if you could stop the blue light 3 hours before bed, that would be super cool. But I don't think that's realistic. So like, if you can do an hour or get blue blocker glasses, I wear my blue blocker glasses. They're super cool. They block the blue light. But starting to like disconnect so you can start connecting into the rhythm. And the room needs to be dark. And I mean dark. And when I think of dark, I think of like when I was a kid and I used to go to the planetarium and it would get pitch black and you'd put your hand in front of your eyes and you couldn't see it. That's what I mean by darkening out your room. So tonight, check your room. If you can see your hand, it does not pass the Dr. Stills dark test. And so you need to either get blackout shades, that's really a good solution, or look at like, why is your room not dark? Is there a hall light on that needs to be turned off? So maybe you can darken it on your own before needing to get the blackout shades. You can also wear like a sleep mask. I have a nice silk one that I wear, but you have to remember, like, our skin has receptors, and so you can still get exposure to light through your skin, so really good to darken out the room. The only light I like in the night is moonlight, especially if you're a woman who's having hormonal imbalances. Bathing in the moonlight is a beautiful thing, so you can do that. Nutrition. So if you are drinking caffeine, eating too much sugar, these are stimulants, and this can keep you up at night. And even I have seen patients who are like, well, I finished drinking my caffeine by 12 o'clock, so it shouldn't be affecting me. And maybe, but maybe not. We all have different ways of how we metabolize and handle caffeine, some of us better than others. And so 12 o'clock may be too late. I mean, I'm not a big fan of caffeine anyway, or coffee, because it's really overstimulating your adrenal glands. And a lot of us are relying on it because we don't have energy. And so there's that like the vicious cycle where like you don't get enough sleep and then you drink caffeine all day. And then in the afternoon, you reach for a candy bar because you're just trying to fake give your body energy. And so again, going back to the root starts with getting a good night's sleep. And alcohol, I mean, I'm not a big drinker, but I'm really not a big drinker now because I found, especially as I got older, so I'm 52 now, but I found as I got older, like in my 40s, if I drank alcohol, even just like one glass, it's a nervous system depressant, and yeah, I'll fall asleep, but then bing, I wake up in the middle of the night and I can't sleep. So it's really not worth it. Medication side effects. Medication side effects is something I always look at if a patient is coming in on medications, because often what they're taking can be causing their problems. And so before you start fixing things, you want to get rid of what's causing the problem. And so you need to look at your medications or your patient's medications and see, is insomnia a side effect? Heartburn. Many people suffer with heartburn and it wakes them up at night. And so according to Ayurveda, we should eat our largest meal for lunch. Our Agni, our digestive fire, is stronger in the middle of the day. And so it's best to eat our largest meal for lunch and then eat lightly for dinner. And just doing this and then stopping eating 3 hours before bedtime. So largest meal for lunch, and then dinner needs to be, so like if, have dinner, but be done by 6:30, if you're going to bed at 9:30 or 7, if you're going to go to bed at 10. And that is going to help you sleep, because when we're sleeping, our nervous system is shifting into the parasympathetic nervous system, which is our rest, repair, digest, chill out, instead of the sympathetic, which is our fight or flight, flee, from when we were cavemen and women fleeing from the saber-toothed tiger. But we don't need to flee from the saber-toothed tiger anymore. However, we seem to think the saber-toothed tiger is the inbox that just won't go down, the dishes in the sink, the mail that needs to be gone through, the laundry that needs to be done. And so we want to really induce parasympathetic tone at night. So we don't want to be digesting while we're sleeping. We want to have that done so when we do lie down to sleep, we can just relax, repair, and regenerate. And I have seen many patients, I have told them to do this, and just doing that alone, bonus, they lose some weight just by stopping eating 3 hours before and eating their largest meal during the day. So that's some easy tips to institute and really beneficial. Respiratory problems. So according to traditional Chinese medicine, there is a cycle of tides. There is a clock of when the energy of certain meridians, certain organs is highest. And so, for example, the lung energy is from 3 to 5 a.m. in the morning. And so many people will have problems, an asthma attack, difficulty breathing during that time. And so you can also look at, are you waking up? I always ask my patients, when you wake up and look at the clock, is it always the same time? And so often, that will give me a hint of like, do they need their lung energy strengthened? And it's interesting. So the lung energy is from 3 to 5, and monks will get up at 4, which is the peak, to do their meditation and breathing. So they're riding the energy of what's going on in the body and getting better breathing, better meditation during that time. So 1 to 3 is liver time. It's a common time. It's also the time of Vata in Ayurveda, and Vata is wind, and it is nervousness, and it is anxiety, and Western society is very Vata deranged, especially these days. And so a lot of my patients I see will wake up between 1 and 3, and then I look to their liver and what do I need to do to support their liver. I love castor oil packs. It's a great tool to use to detox, to calm the liver, to help with sleep. So also pain, if someone is in pain, if someone has nutrient deficiencies. So there's all different reasons why someone can be having sleep disturbances, and these are just a few of them. And so I want to get to, I'm checking the time over here. So healthy sleep habits and health self-care. So this is where you can become a sleep superstar. And so your diet and hydration. And so these two are very foundational things. Sleep, water. I'm always screaming at everyone, like, are you sleeping 8 hours and are you drinking enough water? So you need to like take care of these things. Often these things alone will take care of some of the symptoms you're experiencing. So if you get the foundation handled, then you don't have to go chasing every symptom. Then you can see what symptoms went away, what are left, and then you can dig a little deeper. So really important to be hydrated. And for sleep, I always tell my patients, make sure you're done drinking by like 6 o'clock at night, because if you are drinking until you go to bed, it's going to interfere with your sleep, because then you are going to be waking up all night to urinate. So minimum half your weight in ounces. If you're 100 pounds, 50 ounces, but I really like patients to get 3 liters. That is what really stimulates, activates the metabolism, gets things moving and cleared. And so just like sleep is important, so is hydration. Cool temperatures. So it has been shown that sleeping between 60 to 67 degrees really induces, it is in alignment with our circadian rhythm, and we sleep better. So check the temp in your bedroom and see what it's actually at, and make sure it's cool enough. Sleeping naked. So that helps you to cool off, and this will help to increase your immune system. If you sleep with a partner and you're snuggling, it'll increase oxytocin, which is the bonding hormone, helps to relax us. It might increase sexual activity, because now you don't have the layer of pajamas to get through. And so that's a great way to fall asleep. Rather than taking a pill, having an orgasm, releasing all that oxytocin and feel-good hormone is a great way to help you fall asleep, and very healthy and very beneficial. Sex increases your secretory IgA, which is your first line of defense, your mucosal membranes. And so sleep enhances collagen production. So if you are sleeping naked, you're getting more collagen production, you're getting healthier skin. If you sleep naked and you're a woman, then your vagina is getting free airflow. And so a lot of times panties can, they're moist and they're constrictive, and they can lead to yeast infections and things. So sleeping naked, sleeping cold, and sleeping in a healthy bed and mattress. So we spend a third of our lives sleeping, if you're doing the 8 hours a night, which you better be. And so it's really important to have organic cotton sheets, or I use 100% silk sheets. And when my son was just about to go to naturopathic medical school, I said, let's go to an environmental medicine conference. I wanted him to start seeing what's going on. And I remember we sat down, and one of the first cases we heard was of this really sick patient, chronically ill, all sorts of issues. And what they deduced it down to was his mattress was toxic, and it was off-gassing and had all sorts of chemicals in it, and it was making him super sick. And so check out organic mattresses. There's lots of good companies out there. Do your research. And it's worth the investment when you spend that much time in your bedroom. And keep your bedroom just for sex and sleeping. Keep the electronics out of it. Please, please, please do not sleep with your cell phone under your pillow or next to your head. Turn off the Wi-Fi at night. Wi-Fi, it's invisible, but it's an invisible toxin. It depletes melatonin. It interferes with so many things. So turn off the Wi-Fi. Get your phone out of the room. We talked about the pitch black room. Healthy wind down routine. So make sure that this is part of your life. So I always feel like getting healthy, a lot of it includes a calendar and preparation. For example, if you're going to exercise, I always tell my patients, put exercise in your calendar. If you don't get it in your calendar, it's not going to happen. And so the wind down routine, if you're going to go to bed at 10 o'clock, because optimally, I want you sleeping 10 or 10:30 to 6 or 6:30 a.m. Those are the golden hours, and traditional Chinese medicine says every hour before midnight is worth 4 hours after midnight. So you're really getting bonus sleep. So it's not okay to sleep from 2 a.m. to 10 a.m. and say, well, I'm getting my 8 hours. It's not the same quality. So winding down. So knowing yourself, if you like to go to bed and you like to read a little or just meditate or whatever it is that you're doing, then you can't just show up in bed at 10 and expect you're going to be sleeping. You probably have to get into bed at 9:30. And so it's a lot about triaging. When I was a medical student, like I said, I was a single mom. My kids were 6 and 8 at the time. I finally made it to medical school. I had to think about, I couldn't do all the self-care things that I do for myself now, because I'm in a different stage of life. I'm semi-retired. My kids are grown. But back then, I was, very busy in school, so forth. So I thought, what are my non-negotiables? What do I need to stay healthy? And for me, it was 8 hours of sleep. It was a half hour of aerobics, and it was meditation. And so luck had it, around the corner from me lived a Tibetan monk. Who knew? But that just so happened, the universe really gives you what you need when you ask for it. So I would wake up at 4 a.m. and sneak out of the house at 4:15 and go meditate for an hour over at the monk's zendo in his backyard. And so then I would come home and I would get my half hour at the gym, and then I'd wake the kids up and I'd be mom and student and so on. But what the, 4 or 15 is really early to wake up. But what that meant was I went to bed at 8:15. I made sure I got those 8 hours. So by 6:30 in my wind down routine, I was triaging. What do I need to do? What's going to wait till tomorrow? Are those dishes really dirty? Can I just soak them and clean them tomorrow? The laundry can wait. Whatever. We didn't have emails back then, but the mail can wait. And so that's what I'm saying to you. Think about, like, what do you need to do if you're going to go to bed at 10, maybe at 8:30, you're triaging and then you're deciding. So by 9, you're into your cup of chamomile tea or your nice hot bath or your lavender aromatherapy. If you're watching TV or reading, I mean, that's fine. It's realistic. I'm not going to say don't do that, but try and, like, keep it to happy, uplifting things, not like stressful series where you're watching serial killers and so forth. So that's really important. Supplements, can be of big health. I mentioned some before. So, sleep is a total superpower. You must prioritize it. It's so easy. We burn the candle at so many ends. We have such long to-do lists. So easy to be like, oh, well, I got to get this project done. I'll just stay up. But I want to change your thought process. Sleep is non-negotiable. Everything else can wait. So, patient case study. This is just a typical, 53-year-old woman, menopausal. She complains of memory loss, weight gain, fatigue. She's dependent on coffee and sugar, and she has difficulty falling asleep and staying asleep. So this is something that I see commonly. She didn't even really come in complaining about sleep. She came in complaining about fatigue. So again, it's always, I won't treat anyone for fatigue until I evaluate their sleep habits. And so with her, it was about changing her diet. It was about getting her hormones balanced. And, this is like an easy case. And I see people like this all the time who have been suffering for years and years and years. And so that's why naturopathic medicine is so gratifying, that you can help so many people who didn't even realize that sometimes the help is so simple. And so to end, they asked me to talk about what I love about naturopathic medicine, which also could be a 3-day seminar. So I'll say this quickly. I love our philosophy. I love our principles. We honor the healing power of nature. We do no harm. We find and treat the cause, like I talked about. We treat the whole person. We treat the mind, the body, the spirit. We are all about prevention, and the physician acts as a teacher. I'm not here to stand on a pedestal. I'm here with all my knowledge to guide you and practicing what I preach. I really believe practicing what I preach has helped me so long and go so far. And I think because of these principles, I'll tell you just a quick story that really helped me. When I was a new doctor, 7 days, my 7th day in practice, in walked an elderly gentleman who had stage 4 pancreatic cancer and was told he was going to die and to go home and get his affairs in order. And I was like, oh my God. So in clinic, I had focused on pediatrics. Remember, I said I went to school because I wanted to help my son. And I also had a brother who had committed suicide. So I also focused a lot on mental issues. So I was kind of like a pediatric psychiatrist. And I had never, and I mean never, treated a cancer patient. And now here I am, a brand new doctor. I'm in clinical practice all by myself, and in walks this, and not just any cancer, but stage 4 pancreatic cancer, which is typically known as a death sentence. And I just took a breath. I remembered the universe sends you what you can handle. And I looked to the principles and the philosophy of naturopathic medicine. And I was honest with him and his wife. I said, look, I'm a new doctor, never treated cancer, but I have these principles and philosophy that I look at when I see the body and how the body heals. And I said, I'm happy to apply them to you. I can't make you any guarantees, but I'm happy to do that and see what happens. And long story short, he became a superstar patient, which was, surprising at first, because we spent 45 minutes, one of our first visits, talking about why margarine is bad and butter is okay. But he learned quick, when you're staring at death, you get on track really quick. And he became a great patient. And like I said, long story short, he lived, and the cancer was cured. And it was a great lesson to me that our medicine is so powerful. Doesn't matter what the disease, doesn't matter what the diagnosis. It just matters that you follow the philosophy. And that led me to becoming a specialist in cancer as a naturopathic doctor. So the medicine often finds you rather than you finding it. And so my future plans are just to continue what I'm doing. I'm semi-retired. I had a great clinic and I still see patients. I am creating a new program for menopausal women, a little mini retreat where they come and spend intense time with me for a couple of days. I write, I teach, I lecture, and I just love to share. Oh, I just started a podcast. So check that out on the science of self-healing. It's through a nonprofit I sit on the board of, which is Bioregulatory Medicine Institute. So just spreading, just really, I'm passionate about spreading the word of what we do because I've seen it help so many patients. And my advice for you is to get 8 hours of sleep so you can be a good student. And my advice for you is to follow your dreams. If you're passionate about being a naturopathic doctor, then don't let anything stop you. Find a way to make it happen. The world needs you. There's so many out there. We need you. We need your new brains and your new minds, and we need you to join our profession. So this is just, if anyone's interested in following me or finding me online or on Facebook or anything, you can check me out here. If you go to my website and sign up, I have a newsletter that I send out every week. I blog at Women's Health Network. I'm on Instagram and Facebook, and hope to connect with you all soon.
Thank you so much, Dr. Stills. We have a bunch of questions coming in, but before we go to that, if you could just go to the next slide. Here at AANMC, I'm sure you all know, we host these free monthly events. And so I'm excited to discuss the coming events that we have. We have a speaker on diabetes in November and on depression in October. In November, we also host a virtual fair, which if you're interested in starting school, that would be a great place for you to speak with all of the admissions representatives all at once and start to get a sense of what school may be the best one for you if you want to go this route. And if you can go just one more slide, if you have any additional questions that we haven't gotten to by the end of today, because I do recognize we only have about 10 minutes left, you can please feel free to reach out to us at AANMC, and we're happy to get you either a recording of today's webinar or get your questions answered. So with that, there are a bunch of questions that are coming in, so I'm going to try and get to as many as I can here. One that came in was about weighted blankets. Can you speak to the benefits of a weighted blanket and sleep?
I love weighted blankets. I think, and it's very well known in for people on the spectrum and in the autism community that it actually helps to calm them. But I think for anyone who has any kind of anxiety, I think, I know personally me, I can't sleep unless I have my heavy blanket on me and I'm all swaddled up like a baby. And so I think they're a great tool to use, and, certainly can't hurt to try it and see if it works for you. But I know it benefits a lot of people, so I'm a big fan.
Thank you. And so I think there's a toss-up because you have this weighted blanket, but it can tend to overheat people. So how do you I know you said keep your room cool and stay cool yourself. So how do you balance that with the big, heavy weighted blanket and...
You just pay a higher electric bill. So you get the electric bill down. There's also, there's a company, I think they're called Chili, that has a cooling pad. So that's something that people can check out and see, if that works for you. So yeah, as in everything in life, it's a balance. But, and if you sleep fine, some people don't even need a blanket. And, so it's really a personal thing. Some people just do better with the weighted blanket. I like my heavy blanket.
Me too. So there was just a personal question, where you got your meditation certification?
Oh, I am studied with John Kabat-Zinn, who is the father of mindfulness meditation. And so I'm a huge fan of MBSR, and you can all Google MBSR. There are, well, now with what's going on with COVID, most of the classes are online, but you can do the 8-week course online. And it is such a powerful, powerful experience. I was exposed to it when I was a first-year med student, and I got a mentor and we would teach meditation, and it just really changed the way I looked at healing. And so meditation is good medicine.
Okay, so there are a few questions here about pain and sleep, and sometimes people wake either with back pain or neuropathy or tingling and things of that sort that wakes them up. And again, I know you talked about treating the root cause, but many times people have insomnia due to pain. Can you speak a little bit about that?
Yeah, I mean, it does go back to the root cause. And I mean, you can use, I know a lot of people like will use analgesics, but using like CBD and applying it to the painful areas before bed can be helpful. Using hot and cold, whether like you're doing it, depending where the pain is, but you can apply hot and cold to areas to get some stimulation and circulation. I'm a really big fan of pancreatic enzymes for decreasing inflammation. And so taking them on an empty stomach in high dose. Of course, you'd want to do this under a doctor's advice. I'm not prescribing anything to anyone, but that can help decrease inflammation. Turmeric, fish oil, neuropathies often B12 shots can be helpful with that. And so, really looking at what you're doing. It could be your foods inflaming you. I find that so frequently. So I do a lot of food sensitivity testing for patients to get their food sensitivities out of their diet. So we're just looking at ways, it's like we have a backpack and it's filled and it's overflowing, and so we have pain and inflammation. So what are the things we can take out of the backpack to reduce the symptoms and bring it down? And so, making sure you're hydrated, like I talked about. So many people are in pain because they're just walking around clinically dehydrated.
Thank you. So I know you spoke about not eating too much before bed, and being mindful of sugar and all of that. So there's a question about folks that wake up or are hungry in the evening and want a snack. So how do you what would be your advice for managing blood sugars throughout the day so that hopefully you're not wanting that snack at night, or what to do? Because there are a lot of people who are kind of accustomed with that whole midnight snack connotation, which I think is crazy. But it's totally counter to health. Like, we shouldn't be eating at midnight. So
I mean, if you do need a little snack before bed, maybe you want to get like a complex carb and a protein. So maybe like, a little piece of a rice cracker with a little bit of almond butter. But optimally, as you were saying, you want to balance the blood sugars through the day so that's not becoming an issue. And so it's really important, and everyone is an individual, so there are some people who do really great with like intermittent fasting and they can wake up and not eat till noon. And then there are other people whose blood sugars just can't handle that. And like for them, I'm like, you need to eat some protein within a half hour of waking up. And so breakfast can be really important to stabilizing and setting up good blood sugar throughout the day. And so, and when I say breakfast, I mean like good breakfast. I don't mean like have a waffle or have a donut. I mean like protein, like even eating like chicken or fish, or, I eat like, I always teach people like eat dinner for breakfast. And the first time I tell it to someone, they're like, "You're insane, Dr. Stills." I'm like, just trust me. I might be insane, but trust me anyway. And then they always come back like the next time and they're like, "Oh my God, it was so weird at first, but I love it now." And so getting good protein, getting some good vegetables in. And if you want to start more traditional, you could do like eggs and turkey bacon and some greens and get an avocado, get some good fats. And then protein throughout the day is really important, just making sure to keep your blood sugar stabilized, getting good fats and getting rid of the sugars, which, just make us go like this, like a crazy roller coaster.
absolutely. Yeah, I think the blood sugar during the day will help regulate that and hopefully mitigate that evening snackiness. And the other piece of it too, and I think right now, just not to belabor this, but this is a very stressful time for a lot of people, and often I've seen in practice over the years, and I'm sure Dr. Stills has as well, that the mindfulness approach to eating is very important. And so taking a moment before you reach for something to say, am I truly hungry? Am I thirsty? Is this choice of this meal going to help me go in the direction I want to with my health? And just having a mindful moment before you sit and snack, because sometimes there's boredom. A lot of times I would see people who just kind of got in the habit of eating at night because they were bored. And so really just being mindful about that. So I
Well,
just wanted to tack that
I
on.
love
Go.
that. And I'll just add to that. with mindfulness, because I'm a really big fan of, being mindful and having a relationship with food. And I think a lot of people, especially women, have such an unhealthy relationship with food, and they go on yo-yo diets and binging and depriving themselves. And so I just add to that, like if you are craving that chocolate chip cookie, like, yes, I always tell patients, stop, check in. Like, do you really need that cookie? Do you really want that cookie? Or are you bored or something else going on? Are you stressed? But if you like decide, no, I really want that cookie, then like go for it. Like sit down, mindfully eat the cookie, chew it slowly, savor it, and do not beat yourself up. Just enjoy it. And when you start to develop that kind of relationship of checking in, that's how you become healthy.
Thank you. So I know we're almost out of time. Do you have any favorite books on sleep or on this topic? Or I know there were a couple other questions about botanicals, and I know we only have a couple
Um,
minutes left, and
so
and that botanicals and sleep is like a whole nother 3-day thing. So
Actually, so National Geographic, I just found this like the other day. I grabbed it, put out a whole thing on sleep. It's their new edition. It's on display until October 30th, and it's great. I read through it and it was just so interesting. So, you can pick that up. And any favorite books on sleep? Gosh, hmm, I don't think so. I know there's what's his name? There's some Michael Bruce, the sleep doctor. I think he has some interesting information on sleep. I'll have to think of that. I'm looking at my bookshelf over here. I'm like, but I
I
don't.
th well, what one good one that you mentioned was John Kabat-Zinn and all of the mindfulness stuff. And I think,
Yeah.
for people who wake early, there were a couple questions for people like, what do I do if I wake up after 5 hours every night? And so, the mindfulness meditation can also be helpful to help you get back to sleep if you wake early. So that, those types of mindfulness exercises might be good resources to
Yeah,
just
nice.
think about.
So the Full Catastrophe Living is his book that talks about the program, and then Wherever You Go, There You Are, which is like one of my favorite sayings, is the title of another one of his books. That's a great one.
Wonderful. Well, I am sorry for those of you who asked questions and have not had a chance to get them answered. We do have the information up here to email us if you have any additional questions that you'd like to get out for us. So again, thank you, Dr. Stills, for coming today. I so very appreciate this talk. I know that there were a bunch of